Gemini, the people you attract are your mirrors and what they teach you about yourself. There's a quiet truth woven into the fabric of your life. Gemini, every person who crosses your path is not there by accident. They arrive as mirrors, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp, reflecting back to you the parts of yourself you cannot yet fully see. Some come wrapped in kindness, reminding you of your capacity to love and to be loved. Others arrive carrying challenges, triggering your wounds, and in those moments it may feel easier to run or to deny. Yet beneath the discomfort lies a sacred invitation to notice what within you is asking to be healed, integrated, or acknowledged. As a Gemini, you are endlessly curious about people and fascinated by the exchange of ideas. But what if these interactions are less about them and more about you learning who you are through their presence? This is the alchemy of relationship, the dance of self-discovery through reflection. When you pause to see how others mirror your strengths, your fears, your contradictions, you begin to realize that they are not just companions on your journey. They are teachers of your soul. If these words resonate, I invite you to stay with me, to listen with an open heart. And if you feel guided, share this message with someone who needs to be reminded of the mirrors in their own life. Let us walk together into these truths. And in doing so, uncover the wisdom that your relationships are quietly trying to reveal. There's a saying that resonates deeply with the Gemini spirit. We don't meet people by accident. They are reflections of something we need to see. For you, Gemini, relationships are not simply about companionship or entertainment. They are classrooms of the soul. With your quicksilver mind, your adaptability, and your gift of communication, you are naturally drawn people from all walks of life. Some arrive with laughter and lightness, while others bring intensity and conflict. But when you step back and observe more carefully, you will begin to see the patterns. The ones you attract most often are not random. They are mirrors, showing you both the brilliance and the shadows within yourself. Think about the friend who always brings excitement into your life, who makes you feel alive and spontaneous. At first, you might believe you're simply lucky to have found someone so vibrant. Yet if you look deeper, you'll realize they mirror the part of you that craves freedom, the childlike spark that wants to play, explore, and create without boundaries. Their presence is a reminder that your soul is not meant to be confined to routines or narrow thinking. At the same time, notice the people who frustrate you, who seem controlling, overly critical, or rigid. These individuals often stir discomfort. But in truth, they are reflections of the inner voice within you that sometimes doubts, restricts, or criticizes yourself. Their behaviors mirror your own internal limitations, inviting you to recognize and release them. For Gemini, whose symbol is the twins, mirrors play an even deeper role. You already live with duality inside, a dance between curiosity and overthinking, freedom and fear, light and shadow. The people around you become living embodiments of these inner contrasts. The partner who craves stability may highlight the restless wanderer within you. The colleague who seems overly cautious may reflect your own hesitation in committing to a single path. Every interaction becomes a chance to explore your own contradictions, to witness where you are in balance and where you are resisting growth. Consider a real-life example. Imagine a Gemini woman who constantly attracts partners who are emotionally unavailable. She may initially feel unlucky, wondering why love always seems out of reach. But when she looks into the mirror these partners provide, she begins to see a deeper truth, that she herself struggles with intimacy. Perhaps she is so used to keeping things light, avoiding emotional depth, that she unconsciously calls in people who cannot offer it either. The mirror is not punishment, it is guidance. It invites her to explore her own fear of vulnerability, to heal the wounds that make closeness uncomfortable, and to finally step into relationships that reflect her readiness for deeper love. On the other hand, think of a Gemini man who finds himself surrounded by highly ambitious friends. At first, he may compare himself and feel inadequate, thinking he lacks the discipline or drive they embody. But when he takes a step back, he realizes they are mirrors of his own untapped potential. Their ambition calls forth his hidden strengths, showing him the courage and focus he has yet to fully claim. Instead of being intimidated, he can choose to let these mirrors inspire him, reminding him that what he admires in others already lives within him. This is the beauty of mirrors. They do not only reflect wounds, they also reflect gifts. The people you attract show you both your light and your shadows. When you admire someone's brilliance, generosity, or creativity, it is because you recognize a piece of it inside yourself. When you are triggered by someone's selfishness, dishonesty, or coldness, it is because some part of you is either carrying that wound or is in deep resistance to it. Life, in its wisdom, brings you exactly the mirrors you need at each stage of your journey. For Gemini, who thrives on learning, relationships become the most profound form of education. Books, ideas, and conversations feed your intellect, but it is through human connection that your soul is tested and stretched. Every person who enters your orbit is both a reflection and a teacher. They ask you to look not just outward, but inward, to notice the stories you tell yourself, the patterns you repeat, and the truths you have yet to embrace. The challenge is that mirrors are not always easy to face. When someone wounds you, your first instinct may be to blame them, to detach, or to run toward another distraction. Yet healing begins when you pause and ask, what part of myself is being shown here? What truth is this person reflecting that I have not yet acknowledged? By shifting from blame to curiosity, you transform relationships into opportunities for growth rather than cycles of pain. And here lies a secret gift. When you accept the mirrors, you begin to attract new ones. As you heal the parts of yourself that once called in wounded partners, critical friends, or draining connections, you make space for mirrors of wholeness, kindness, and alignment. The more you integrate, the more the world reflects your inner balance back to you. Gemini, your relationships are never random. They are chapters in your story of becoming. They are the looking glass through which you see your duality, your brilliance, your fears, and your infinite capacity for transformation. When you understand this, you no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You step into the role of conscious creator, knowing that every person who appears before you is not just a passerby, but a reflection of your own evolving soul. When you begin to see others as mirrors, Gemini, a new layer of self-awareness opens before you. It is no longer about labeling people as good or bad influences in your life, but rather asking, what part of me are they reflecting right now? This shift is transformative because it allows you to reclaim your power. Instead of feeling like life happens to you, you begin to see that life responds to you. Your energy, your unhealed wounds, your hidden gifts, all of these ripple outward, drawing people who embody them in one form or another. Take, for example, the mirror of impatience. Many Geminis find themselves surrounded by people who rush, who want answers quickly, who seem restless and easily bored. At first, this may feel draining, especially when you long for calm or stability. But if you look deeper, you will realize these mirrors are reflecting your own restless mind, the part of you that jumps from thought to thought, project to project, craving stimulation. These relationships give you a chance to witness yourself outside of yourself. By observing impatience in another, you are reminded of the restlessness within you that sometimes needs soothing. Instead of resenting these mirrors, you can use them as reminders to breathe, to slow down, to ground your airy energy into something tangible. On the other side, think of the mirror of stillness. Sometimes, Geminis are drawn to people who seem almost opposite, grounded, steady, and content with routine. At first, these individuals might bore you, making you feel trapped in predictability. Yet, they mirror the part of you that secretly craves stability, the anchor that prevents you from drifting endlessly in search of the next adventure. Their presence is a reflection of your own need for balance, showing you that excitement and peace are not enemies but companions. One of the most powerful lessons Gemini must learn through mirrors is the truth about projection. Often, what bothers you most in others is not random. It is the very thing you deny or reject within yourself. If you are irritated by someone's arrogance, perhaps it mirrors your own hidden pride or the confidence you wish you could embody without shame. If dishonesty enrages you, perhaps it reflects your own struggles with speaking your truth or moments when you silence yourself to avoid conflict. Mirrors do not lie. They magnify. They hold up the traits you most need to confront, whether you are conscious of them or not. Imagine a Gemini woman who constantly complains that her friends gossip too much. She feels exhausted by the endless chatter, the shallow talk. But when she looks into the mirror, she realizes she too has used gossip as a way to connect, to feel included, to avoid silence. The universe has placed these friends in her life not as punishment, but as mirrors to show her the ways she has given her energy to conversations that do not nourish her soul. By seeing this reflection, she can choose differently. She can shift her energy toward deeper dialogues, creating new mirrors who reflect the version of herself she longs to become. Or think of a Gemini man who attracts mentors who are strict and demanding. He may resent their criticism, feeling judged or pressured. But when he looks closely, he realizes that they mirror the high standards he secretly holds for himself. Their voices echo his inner critic. By recognizing this, he can begin to soften his own self-talk, to cultivate compassion rather than relentless pressure. In doing so, he changes the mirror and finds himself surrounded by guides who encourage and uplift rather than those who only demand. Another layer of mirrors is found in romantic relationships. Geminis, with their quick wit and charm, often attract partners who either fuel their curiosity or challenge their emotional depth. If you notice a pattern of attracting partners who fear commitment, look inward. Do they mirror your own hesitation to be tied down, your fear that commitment means losing freedom? If you find yourself with partners who are highly emotional while you prefer to stay in your head, ask yourself, do they mirror the emotions you've avoided, the feelings you've intellectualized instead of allowing yourself to fully experience? Relationships become sacred mirrors when you see them as opportunities to integrate the parts of yourself that have been hidden or denied. Instead of asking, why do I always attract people like this? Shift to, what in me calls this person forth? What truth are they showing me? That one change in perspective can transform cycles of frustration into pathways of healing. For Gemini, this awareness is particularly liberating. You are a sign of duality, always navigating between opposites, logic and intuition, independence and connection, exploration and grounding. The mirrors you attract help you integrate these opposites. They reflect the unbalanced parts of your twin nature until you learn to harmonize them within. Consider how this plays out in friendships. A Gemini who only surrounds themselves with people who validate their curiosity may never grow beyond the surface. But a Gemini who also attracts friends who challenge them, friends who question, who push for depth, who call them into accountability, receives a mirror that stretches their soul. The former keeps you comfortable. The latter makes you whole. This is the essence of the mirror lesson, growth over comfort. The universe sends you not only people who affirm your light, but also those who reveal your shadows. Each reflection is an invitation to see yourself more clearly, to acknowledge the parts of your soul you've ignored, and to bring them into balance. Some mirrors stay for a lifetime, others only for a season, but all carry meaning. Gemini, when you embrace the mirrors, you unlock a profound wisdom. The world outside you is not separate from the world within. Every smile, every conflict, every attraction, every trigger is a reflection of your inner landscape. By learning from these mirrors, you come closer to understanding yourself, not as fragmented twins, but as a whole, integrated being. And once you embody this wholeness, the mirrors you attract will shift to reflect your harmony, your healing, and your truth. When you reach the awareness that every person is a mirror, Gemini, you begin to understand that life is not random, but exquisitely intentional. The universe knows exactly what you need at every stage of your evolution, and so it sends people, sometimes angels cloaked in kindness, sometimes teachers wrapped in challenge, to show you what your soul is ready to face. The beauty of this is that nothing is wasted. Even the painful encounters, the betrayals, the disappointments, all hold their place as mirrors that illuminate truths about yourself you might not have discovered otherwise. For a sign like Gemini, who thrives on interaction and exchange, this mirror principle is particularly profound. You are naturally wired to absorb lessons from dialogue, from stories, from the dance of energy between yourself and others. Unlike solitary signs who may retreat inward for growth, your path often unfolds in the presence of others, through the reflections they offer. This means that your growth is intricately tied to your relationships, whether fleeting or long-lasting. Every soul who enters your orbit carries a message about who you are becoming. Let us look at one of the deepest lessons: boundaries. Many Geminis, with their open hearts and curious minds, attract people who test their boundaries. You might find yourself surrounded by friends who demand too much of your time, colleagues who expect you to take on more than your share, or partners who push your emotional limits. At first, you might feel victimized by this dynamic, wondering why others cannot simply respect you. Yet when you recognize them as mirrors, you see the truth. They reflect your own struggle to honor your limits. Their presence highlights the areas where you overextend yourself, where you say yes when you mean no, where you fear disappointing others at the cost of your own well-being. By seeing these mirrors, you are called to strengthen your boundaries, to honor your own energy. And once you do, the type of people you attract begins to shift. Another mirror often present in Gemini's life is the lesson of authenticity. With your gift for adaptation, you can blend into many environments, taking on different roles and personas depending on the situation. While this flexibility is a strength, it can also lead to losing touch with your authentic self. This is why you may attract people who are inauthentic, who wear masks, who say one thing but mean another. Their presence is uncomfortable because they remind you of the moments you have hidden your truth, the times you have spoken words to please rather than to express your soul. They mirror the places where you fear rejection if you reveal your true self. By confronting these mirrors, you are invited to drop the masks, to step into radical honesty, to show up as you truly are without apology. Take the example of a Gemini woman working in a corporate environment where everyone seems fake, smiling on the outside, but gossiping behind closed doors. She feels drained by the lack of authenticity around her. Yet when she looks at the mirror, she realizes that she too has been hiding her true opinions to keep the peace, silencing her ideas to avoid conflict. The people around her reflect the disconnection she has with her own voice. This awareness gives her the courage to speak more truthfully, to align her actions with her values, and eventually to create an environment where authentic connections thrive. Similarly, consider a Gemini man who attracts partners who constantly criticize him for not being serious enough. At first, he may feel attacked, misunderstood, or pressure to change. But in truth, these partners mirror his own inner conflict. The part of him that doubts his depth, that questions whether his lightness and playfulness are truly valuable. Their criticism echoes his own inner insecurities. By recognizing this, he can shift the narrative. He can embrace the truth that his joy, his humor, and his ability to see life from multiple perspectives are gifts, not flaws. As he embraces this truth, the mirror changes, and he begins to attract partners who celebrate his playfulness rather than condemn it. Mirrors also appear in the form of triggers. The people who irritate you the most are often the ones holding the keys to your growth. For Gemini, who values mental clarity, being around people who are emotionally chaotic can feel overwhelming. Yet these individuals mirror the emotional layers within you that you may have neglected or avoided. They remind you that logic alone cannot carry you through life, that your heart also has a voice that deserves to be heard. Similarly, if you find yourself triggered by people who seem too rigid or narrow-minded, ask yourself, do they mirror the part of you that sometimes fears committing to a single perspective, the part of you that resists grounding into one truth? Each trigger is a mirror that magnifies what you most need to integrate. The challenge, of course, is that it is easier to blame others than to see them as mirrors. It takes humility to say, this person annoys me because they reflect something I haven't healed. It takes courage to admit, I am angry because they are showing me a truth I didn't want to face. But this is the sacred path of growth. When you accept that the mirror is not about them, but about you, you step into radical responsibility for your own life. You begin to see that every relationship is a gift, even when it arrives wrapped in difficulty. Gemini, the gift of your duality is that you can hold multiple truths at once. You can love someone and still recognize the shadow they mirror. You can be grateful for a painful encounter while also acknowledging the hurt it caused. You can honor the reflection without needing to stay in the presence of every mirror forever. Some mirrors are meant for a season, to reveal a lesson, and then they fade. Others remain for a lifetime, reflecting your growth as you evolve together. Ultimately, the people you attract are not here to define you, but to refine you. They are not the source of your identity, but the reflections that help you discover it. The more consciously you engage with these mirrors, the more intentional your growth becomes. Instead of resisting the lessons, you lean into them. Instead of being stuck in cycles, you break them. Instead of feeling misunderstood, you begin to understand yourself. And perhaps this is the greatest wisdom of all. When you change the way you see your mirrors, the mirrors themselves change. The moment you heal a wound, the universe no longer needs to send you reflections of it. The moment you embrace your gifts, you attract people who celebrate them. The outer world shifts because the inner world has transformed. And for a Gemini, who so longs for both connection and freedom, this realization is the key to finding harmony in a world full of mirrors. As you journey deeper into this truth, Gemini, you begin to realize that mirrors are not only about individual relationships, but also about the collective energies you find yourself surrounded by. The groups, communities, and environments you are drawn to all serve as magnified mirrors of your internal state. When you are restless, you may suddenly find yourself surrounded by chaotic energy, people who seem scattered, situations that feel unpredictable. When you are grounded, you naturally gravitate toward communities that are calm, balanced, and harmonious. The outer world reflects the inner landscape. This means that by paying attention to the patterns of people around you, you can track your own growth. If you notice that you keep attracting those who do not listen to you, perhaps it is a reflection of the way you sometimes dismiss your own voice. If you are surrounded by people who constantly need saving, perhaps it mirrors the part of you that feels valuable only when you are rescuing others. And when you suddenly find yourself among people who inspire, uplift, and challenge you, it reflects the rising vibration within your own being. One of the greatest lessons Gemini learns through mirrors is the art of self-acceptance. Because you are a sign of duality, it can be easy to feel fragmented, torn between different identities, desires, and roles. You may look at others and feel they are more consistent, more rooted, more certain of who they are. Yet, when you see them as mirrors, you begin to realize that their certainty reflects your own hidden longing for stability, just as your flexibility reflects their hidden desire for freedom. Everyone you meet is carrying something you, too, are navigating, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. The mirror principle teaches you that you are never alone in your struggles or your gifts. Life will always reflect them back to you through others. Take, for example, a Gemini woman who joins a creative circle filled with artists who seem fearless in expressing themselves. At first, she may feel intimidated, doubting her own abilities. Yet, these people are mirrors of the creativity she has not fully allowed herself to embody. Their courage reflects the bravery waiting inside her. With time, she realizes that her attraction to this group is not by accident. It is her soul's way of calling her toward her own authentic expression. Without those mirrors, she might never have seen her potential so clearly. Or consider a Gemini man who is drawn to spiritual communities where people are deeply reflective, meditative, and inwardly focused. As someone who thrives on external interaction and lively debate, he may initially feel out of place, but their presence mirrors the inner part of him that longs for silence, depth, and stillness. Though it may feel foreign, it is also profoundly familiar because it is a truth within him that has been waiting to be seen. These mirrors call him to balance the external with the internal, the chatter of the mind with the whispers of the soul. Another layer of mirrors comes through conflict. Many Geminis dislike heavy confrontations. You prefer dialogue, intellectual sparring, or even lighthearted banter over emotional battles. Yet life will often place you in situations where conflict becomes unavoidable. The people who trigger your anger, disappointment, or defensiveness are mirrors of your own unhealed wounds. For instance, if you find yourself clashing with someone who refuses to listen, it may mirror the part of you that has silenced your own needs. If you encounter someone who manipulates words, twisting truths, it may mirror the times you have used your quick wit to escape accountability. Conflict, while uncomfortable, is a sacred mirror that pushes you to confront the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. But mirrors are not only about what needs healing. They also reflect what is ready to bloom. When you meet someone whose presence feels like sunlight, who seems to effortlessly awaken joy, it is because they mirror the joy within you that is ready to rise. When you are captivated by someone's wisdom, it is because they reflect the wisdom that already exists in your soul. These are not qualities outside of you. They are qualities within you, mirrored through another so you can recognize and embrace them. The mirror principle also extends to love. In romance, you attract not what you want but who you are. If you are fragmented, you attract partners who embody fragmentation. If you are whole, you attract partners who reflect wholeness. For Gemini, who often fears losing freedom and commitment, love becomes the ultimate mirror of balance. Partners who cling too tightly mirror your fear of suffocation, while partners who remain distant mirror your own hesitation to fully open your heart. The lesson is not to blame them, but to ask yourself, what is their presence showing me about my relationship with love, with vulnerability, with freedom? When you begin to answer these questions, you step into a more conscious way of relating. Imagine a Gemini woman who repeatedly falls in love with people who cannot commit. After heartbreaks, she begins to wonder if she is cursed. But when she looks into the mirror, she sees that she too has been avoiding commitment, always leaving the back door open in case something better comes along, always fearing that settling down will mean losing herself. The people she attracts are not curses. They are mirrors of her own ambivalence. Once she acknowledges this, she can shift, embracing the balance between freedom and devotion. And in doing so, she attracts new mirrors, partners who reflect her readiness for love that is both expansive and rooted. For Gemini, the journey of mirrors is not about judgment but integration. Each reflection shows you where you are in alignment and where you are resisting growth. When you stop running from the mirrors, when you embrace them with curiosity instead of fear, you begin to weave your duality into wholeness. You no longer see people as random actors in your life story, but as sacred teachers guiding you back to yourself. This awareness transforms the way you move through the world. You become less reactive and more reflective. Instead of being caught in cycles of blame, you ask deeper questions. Instead of fearing what others reveal, you embrace it as guidance. And as you grow, the mirrors around you shift, because the outer world can only ever reflect the inner one. The more peace you cultivate within, the more peaceful people appear around you. The more love you embody, the more loving relationships you attract. The mirror never lies, Gemini. It only magnifies the truth of who you are becoming. By the time you reach the stage of understanding, Gemini, you begin to see mirrors not as burdens, but as blessings. You realize that every encounter, no matter how fleeting, is an invitation to look more deeply within. The people you attract are not obstacles on your path. They are the path. They are soul mirrors, guiding you back to places within yourself that long to be seen, loved, and integrated. One of the most profound mirrors for Gemini comes in the form of stillness through others. Because you are naturally restless, your mind rarely stops spinning. You may find yourself drawn to people who live slower, who savor quiet, who seem content without constant stimulation. At first, you may dismiss them, thinking they lack ambition or drive. Yet over time, you begin to realize that they mirror the part of you that longs for peace. They show you that rest is not laziness but nourishment, that silence is not emptiness but presence. Through them, you learn to embrace stillness without fear or boredom, to balance your airy energy with groundedness. Similarly, you may attract mirrors of intensity. These are the people who feel everything deeply, who cannot skim the surface of life, who demand emotional truth. They can be overwhelming for a Gemini who prefers to keep things light and playful, but their presence is essential. They mirror your own buried emotions, the depth you sometimes avoid by staying in your head. They invite you to open your heart more fully, to allow vulnerability instead of hiding behind clever words. Without them, you might never learn that your emotional depth is as powerful a gift as your intellect. Another type of mirror appears through cycles of repetition. If you notice that you keep attracting the same kind of people, partners who leave, friends who betray, mentors who criticize, it is a clear sign that a part of you is asking for healing. The universe repeats the mirror until you finally see yourself in it. For instance, if you repeatedly attract people who dismiss your ideas, it may reflect your own self-doubt, the way you dismiss your own brilliance before others can even hear it. Once you reclaim your voice, the cycle ends, and new mirrors emerge to honor your truth. Take the story of a Gemini man who constantly feels overshadowed by dominant friends. For years, he believes he simply attracts controlling personalities. But when he looks into the mirror, he realizes that he has been shrinking himself, avoiding leadership, and fearing the responsibility that comes with standing in his power. His friends mirror his avoidance. When he finally claims his authority, he no longer attracts those who overshadow him. Instead, He begins to call in equals, friends who celebrate his leadership rather than diminish it. Or consider a Gemini woman who repeatedly experiences betrayal in love. Each heartbreak convinces her that others cannot be trusted. Yet when she looks deeper, she realizes that the mirrors are showing her the ways she's betrayed herself, ignoring red flags, silencing her intuition, or settling for less than she deserves. The betrayal outside reflects a betrayal within. Once she commits to honoring her own worth, the mirrors shift, and she begins to attract love that is honest, devoted, and true. Gemini, this is the alchemy of mirrors. What you heal within, you no longer need to see reflected outside. As you grow, the quality of your relationships transforms. The friends you attract mirror your authenticity, not your masks. The partners you call and reflect your wholeness, not your wounds. The mentors who appear mirror your potential, not your doubts. The world becomes a gentler mirror because you have become gentler with yourself. But the mirror principle is not just about personal healing. It is also about expansion. The more you embrace your mirrors, the more you realize that others are not separate from you. They are extensions of your consciousness, playing roles in the grand theater of your soul's evolution. This realization dissolves blame and deepens compassion. When you see someone acting from fear, you recognize the fear within yourself. When you see someone embody love, you recognize the love within yourself. The separation begins to blur, and you step into the deeper truth of unity, that every soul you meet is part of your reflection. For a Gemini, this awareness is liberating. It means you no longer have to chase approval or validation outside yourself, because you see that the world is only mirroring back what you already believe about yourself. If you believe you are unworthy, you attract mirrors of rejection. If you believe you are radiant, you attract mirrors of love. Your task is not to control the mirrors, but to nurture beliefs, feelings, and energies you carry within. Change yourself, and the mirrors change too. This brings us to the final lesson, gratitude. When you truly understand mirrors, you begin to feel grateful even for the difficult ones. The friend who tested your patience, the partner who broke your heart, the critic who pushed your buttons. All of them were mirrors showing you something essential. Without them, you might never have grown, never have healed, never have remembered who you truly are. Gratitude transforms bitterness into wisdom, pain into power, wounds into gateways of awakening. Gemini, your life will always be rich with connections, with encounters, with reflections. This is your gift as a sign of communication and exchange. The key is to move beyond surface interactions and see the deeper meaning behind them. Every person you attract is holding up a mirror, and every mirror is pointing you back home, to yourself, to your wholeness, to your light. And as you integrate this truth, you prepare for the next stage of your journey, the conclusion where all the mirrors, all the lessons, all the reflections come together into one truth, that you are not fragmented, not divided, but whole. Conclusion. Gemini, as you look back on this journey, you may begin to see that the people who have crossed your path were never coincidences. They were mirrors, each one reflecting a truth about you, your light, your shadow, your longing, your potential. Some mirrors were gentle, reminding you of the love and brilliance within. Others were sharp, showing you wounds you would rather not face. Yet together, they formed a sacred tapestry of self-discovery, guiding you toward wholeness. What you admire in others already lives within you. What triggers you in others is calling for healing within you. What patterns you repeat with others are invitations to step out of cycles and into transformation. The world is not separate from your inner world. It reflects it, and the more you grow in awareness, the more your mirrors change. The restless begin to mirror your calm. The fearful begin to mirror your courage. The fragmented begin to mirror your wholeness. Your life, Gemini, is a dance of reflection. The twin within you does not walk alone, but constantly sees itself mirrored in every soul you encounter. This is not a burden. It is a gift. It means you are never lost, because the universe is always holding up a mirror to guide you back to yourself. So the next time someone enters your life, whether with kindness or with challenge, pause and ask, what part are they reflecting? What lesson are they here to reveal? By doing so, you shift from reaction to reflection, from resistance to gratitude, from confusion to clarity. I invite you to carry this awareness forward. And if these words have stirred something in you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Share in the comments what mirrors you've noticed in your own life and what lessons they brought you. Your story may be the very mirror someone else needs.